you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics? Then you're in the right place. Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This is the RoboZone Podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of the RoboZone Podcast. For those of you who are just joining the podcast, welcome. And for those of you that are returning, thank you for returning. We are officially sponsored by Kettering University. I want to thank Bob Nichols and Kettering University for sponsoring the RoboZone Podcast. We look forward to working with them. It's going to be a great business relationship, so let's move forward. In today's podcast, we have a roundtable discussion, just catching up with teams from around first. I have interviewed some of these people in the past, and we have a couple new people that have joined the podcast for this week. So let's get to the roundtable discussion. I hope you enjoy. With me tonight, I have Andrew Spees, Team 68, Trucktown Thunder. I have John Wolfert from Team 1506, Metal Muscle. Don Ridges from 1506, Metal Muscle. And finally, Clinton Bollinger, Team 2337, the Engine Nerds. And we just got Ben Wolak, Team 3641, the Flying Toasters. He has perfect timing. So I want to thank all you guys for jumping online with me tonight and taking valuable time out of your Sundays when you guys have a break, especially for you, Clint, because you guys had an event over the weekend. So I just wanted to catch up with each one of you guys, spread a little bit of knowledge for anyone that's listening to the podcast. So, Andrew, I'm going to start with you. Tell us, how's your team's doing? Do you have any events left? What you've experienced so far this year?
We had a rough first competition. We got kind of low. We're still working out kinks on our robot. Second competition, we did really well. We had a 9-match winning streak, which was really cool. We were 31st after the first, I think, 4 matches. First 6 matches, we were 31st. And then we won 6 in a row in qualifications. And the last 2, we actually were able to score over 400, score the 4th rotor. So it was pretty cool to jump from like 31st to 4th. And we ended up in 4th place at the end of qualifications, which was really cool. So things were starting to come together. The robot started working properly. We got all the kind of kinks worked out. We're having a lot of driver station issues that we're sorting through this weekend. So we had a really good showing. Mechanically, our robot kind of died in semifinals. We took a big hit, and it really cost us on our ability to keep up with gears. We had a really excellent alliance, and I think our alliance really could have done really well. We had 5205 and 6435. 6435, I believe, was in Kettering, and they did pretty well there. And we picked up 5205 was an absolutely awesome robot. I haven't seen a faster robot. They just fly, and they can get gears really quickly. So we were picking them up. And we actually had an alliance that could actually probably, if we were functioning properly, probably could have done quite a bit better, but and ended up in the finals. But unfortunately, we took a big hit and attempted to get everything working, but it kind of knocked us out. So we have Marysville this weekend, which is really exciting. We get a third event, which is great because you get that extra 6 hours of work on your robot plus the pit time. And be able to try to go for another blue banner. So we get a lot more driver practice. We're working right now in the shop. Actually, as we speak, we're working on getting our Autons together, working on some motion profiling for vision tracking, and some working on our encoders and trying to get more autonomous modes so we can be more versatile out there to get more points. We're starting to see a lot of teams getting the center Auton, right? Getting that center Auton peg. So we're trying to get those right and left Autons and, trying to get some fuel in the hopper and Auton. So we're kind of sorting those bugs out and getting that ready to go for Marysville this weekend. Hopefully we can take a big jump for state championships. We've shown that we can shoot now, so we've been able to get some fuel in there. But, when it comes down to the elimination matches, what we found at Lansing was you got 445 points, and unless you could find some ways to get some fuel in, you were stuck there. So we saw that with, the Ann Arbor Pioneer. Number 8 beat number 1 in Lansing, and that alliance was scoring 445 points in every single match that they were in, but they just could not get any more points than that. And that's how they were eliminated. Someone got more points than that. So being able to get those fuel in, we're at that point now where you've reached a critical mass of the amount of points that you can get in a match unless you're able to shoot fuel. So just looking ahead at that. One thing we were trying, our alliance was planning our first two matches and eliminations, we were able to score the 445 or up over 400 points. And what we were trying to figure out was how fast, we were actually starting to have discussions on how fast we could get the four rotors spinning to see how much time we could have to shoot, or if we could change our strategies up to where we were trying to get some of the hoppers during the match while we were cycling. So anyways, fuel is starting to show its head as to what, and I think at state championships coming up, that's going to be the key. Who can score fuel?
Well, thanks for the update, Andrew, for Team 68. How about Don and John? You guys are both on 1506. How did you guys fare so far? Do you have any more events coming up quickly?
Our next event is states. We've had our two events with first one, week 2 at Kettering, which we ended up on alliance with the engineers, and I think we both felt we could have done better in that alliance. I thought that was ours to win, but unfortunately our robots didn't behave as we like them to behave sometimes. And so we went back and tweaked into the shop, and we tweaked pretty good and worked on our shooting a little bit. And as Andrew said, shooting is the key. We won a couple matches at Midland just by the ability to get some fuel into the hopper. So we were able to, fortunately, take Midland, a fantastic alliance of 3770 and 5661 turned out to be a fantastic partner. That was, I think they were down in 30th or 31st, something like that. But they were able to climb, and they really shone during the finals, and were able to get several gears for us. So that worked out well. Right now, we're just trying to redo our shooter and redo our hopper to be able to get more accuracy and better fuel in for auto after we put the gear on.
How about you, Clint?
This season and this game has had a love-hate relationship, I guess is the best way to say it, right? I think this game has a lot of potential to be an exciting game to watch for spectators, which is one of my first things that I look at for games, is how it looks to the audience. But there's aspects of it that, are usually out of your control. If something happens to your alliance partners, both in, qualifications and in the eliminations, where they're unable to function or something like that and unable to get that climb, there's very few things your alliance can do to make sure you ensure that win. So a lot of times, like I say, you're going to try your hardest to do it. But from what it seems like, from what I'm noticing by watching things, is a lot of the alliance, the ones that keep running and keep and they're operational the entire match, they're the ones that come on top and get a win. So we were fortunate enough this weekend. We were, I think, ranked number 3. We thought we were going to be locked in for number 2, but 3098 pulled out a Hail Mary at their final match. They ended up getting 4 rotors in their final match to boost them above us and 469. And they were the number 1 alliance captain at the event. We were fortunate enough to have us be picked by them. We graciously accepted. Both their autonomous and ours together was a great combination. 3098 had a solid center gear auton, and then once they're done with the center gear, they would shoot their 10 balls. We would run our 40 ball auton. Once we got it tuned in, we were coming out of autonomous with probably somewhere between 23 to 26 kPa after autonomous, which was really nice to come out. And then they were an extremely fast gear cycler. And then we also had 5048 Spartronics, who they were awesome at running gears. We had to use them one time to do center gear auton, so they filled in for that role. And then we were all extremely consistent climbers. So it was an awesome event. Unfortunately, once we got to the finals, 3098 had some main breaker issues, and they died on the field mid-match. The final match, it came down. We were able to once again have 50-48 run center gear auton. We were able to put up 41 kPa in that match, get 2 rotors, even when we had our partner down and dead at the other end. And it came down to a climb in 54-60 strike zone. They were able to get their climb with maybe about a second and a half left at the end. They touched that touchpad, and they won by about 50 points. If they wouldn't have got that touchpad, we would have won by 3. And if 3098 was still operational and did what they did great of, is having that consistent climb, we would have won that match. So it really depends on that operational. So if any advice I can give to people, for preparing for states is make sure your machine is running, and if you got to switch out your main breaker because it broke a few times during other competitions, don't hesitate to buy a new one, switch it out, check your wires, check everything before matches, because that's what really affects the game,
And how many matches out of that weekend, Clint, did you guys hit 40 kPa?
Hold on, give me 2 seconds. You were the I'm going to cheat by going to the Blue Alliance. We were the only one to hit 40 kPa at that event. No one else was able to do that. I think we did it 7 times in qualifications. I thought it wasn't 7. That's too much. What was it? I'm going right now. 4 times we did it in qualifications, and 3 times we did it in the playoffs. So a total of that event, we did it 7 times.
Which is impressive. I think that's the best I've heard, me personally, that I've heard any team do through a competition. I know that it's very rare to have that I've seen a machine such as yours that can throw that many balls up in the air, and it's like raining fuel, right?
It's a crowd pleaser. I mean, I got a handout to 4967, the one team, and Strike Force over on the west side of the state, 2767. They were in Kentwood this weekend. They were raining down more balls than we were, and they paired up together. And I think in their qualification matches, they did, between those 2 alliances, so there's 2 shooters there, they did 17 40 kPas, and in the playoffs they did 7, and most of those were from that alliance, because they have the 2 best shooters on the alliance that always got 40 kPa all the way through playoffs. So those 2 out there are doing great with shooting. The only other team in the state that I think has gotten 40 kPa is the Killer Bees, and they did that twice at Southfield. So there's only about 4 of us that have achieved the 40 kPa.
Which is going to play a key role, I think, when we go to states, right?
Yeah, I mean, our team, we evaluated the game, and we took some inspiration from Team 27 last year. Team 27 last year, they went to states, and they couldn't go under the low bar where everyone else could go under the low bar, right? But they built a robot to play at the higher end. They ended up walking away from Michigan State Championship as the winner, and they never went under the low bar. We took that same kind of inspiration, and we said, this year we're going to be not as good with the gears. Not saying that our alliance and our team can't do gears, but we're going to focus on fuel, because in the end, when all things are equal, everyone gets 2 rotors, 3 rotors, 4 rotors, and it comes down to the end of what's the tiebreaker. The only one option that's not maxed out is fuel. So I believe at states it's going to be a big role. And I felt like we actually saw that at Troy this weekend is I truly feel that alliance selection was honestly, the alliances that people made were built around fuel, kind of as because we were there and we were, a little bit of a force to be reckoned with fuel. So other alliances had to deal with that. And they were picking teams that would shoot a little, but at least they shot some rather than just getting straight up gear runners. And then I think at our event, the 4 rotors happened a few times at Troy. I think 3098 was actually the main participant of those gear runs. It only happened 4 rotors happened 3 times in qualification and only 1 time during the playoffs at Troy.
Right, and my teams and Andrew played all together at not together in an alliance, but played together at Lansing, and I think through that event, I want to say we had something like 15 or 16 matches where we had 4 rotors spinning. There was a lot of rotors spinning during that event. It was kind of amazing.
It depends. I think it really depends on the teams at the event. There was a lot of times that we saw defense played on us, not by the lower teams. It was the good teams who were really good gear runners would come play D on us because of the KPA, because it's the tiebreaker. There was matches we won because we put up 10 balls or something like that, and it totally changes the meta of the game at each event depending on who's there.
That's the first time I've heard meta. And I give you credit for that. It's the first time I heard meta this year when it comes to robotics. And I'm a gamer. You talk about meta. We could talk about games all day long, but I've never heard it referred to in robotics. So Ben Wolak, you're here with us. Tell us a little bit of how the Flying Toasters have done this year.
We had a really tough time at our first competition. There was just a lot of stuff that was not tuned in about our robot and a lot of conflicting views on how to change stuff. It turned out because in Michigan, we had that big DTE energy power outage. So our 6 hours of unbagged time happened without power. So that was kind of interesting. And then we just played at Ann Arbor, our first event, and then we just played at Howell. That went all right. Throughout the event, we got pretty much everything dialed in. The first couple matches, we weren't able to climb, but after that, we climbed every single match. And we just really started to get stuff dialed in, and we made it to the quarterfinals where we lost to a Team Rush and their alliance. We got 468 points against us. So that was a pretty tough score to beat. Plus it happened the Juggernaut's battery fell out of the robot.
Yeah, that can just kill you, can it?
Yeah, because it was right at one of our feeder stations too, so we only had one that was able to be used.
Well, it sounds like you had your challenges for this year, and I don't know how you guys worked on a bot without power, because how can you see without light? But I guess you were doing by candlelight, robotics by candlelight. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing.
Yeah, kind of. Our school has a huge diesel generator in the back, so it powered about half the lights in the school. We had half of those lights, and then we used a bandsaw as pretty much every tool you can imagine. We used it as a rounding tool for like what you'd use a belt sander for and everything, just off of a little inverter. So we made do with what we had, but it was definitely tough to get to Ann Arbor and go in with our 6 hours on bag time being not really able to be used that way.
Well, thanks for the update, Ben, on the toasters, and we all hope that it gets a little easier for you. I know we're going into states, which is always a juggernaut of an event to deal with. So I had the pleasure of meeting for the very first time Gail Alpert and interviewing her last week. And if anyone hasn't listened to that episode of the podcast, I thought it was pretty cool. She's very energetic and very all about First in Michigan. So one of the things that she brought to my attention that I didn't know prior to that was that this year's states is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have the 4 divisions and 40 teams in each of those divisions. And then she elated to the fact that there's going to be some type of algorithm that puts us all in there. So my question to Andrew, you first, is where do you think your team's going to be in the 4 divisions? Do you think all of us can be in the same division? I mean, it's kind of a conundrum. Everyone's wondering what's going to happen. So how do you think that's going to play?
I think the first thing is, what are they going to name the fields, right? So I'm thinking of Michigan names. I'm really hoping we're going to have a Kogel field, a Fago field, Better Made field. I don't know. What do you guys think about the field names?
The field names have already been chosen. They're the four top sponsors for First in Michigan. So those are the field names.
Cool. All right, that's cool. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. There's always been in Michigan. There's a large concentration of big teams in Oakland County. There's a large concentration of teams out on the west side that have been around quite a while. It's gonna be interesting to see how they work that out randomly, right? I'm assuming they would probably, because the talk that I've heard is that we're kind of practicing for Worlds next year, right? So I would think it would be smart to use a similar algorithm to what they're using for the first championships and how they decide their divisions. Personally, I think that would be the right way to do it, because we're obviously going to have to do that next year, right? So that to me seems like the most logical way of doing it. I don't know. I can't remember what that formula is, but I'm sure there's one out there of some kind. I do remember when every year I noticed that when they do select it, I'm pretty sure there was they split up the Michigan teams. Like, we had the most number of teams, so it almost seemed like we would get an equal number of Michigan teams on every field, or somewhat close to that. That's totally anecdotal. No proof.
I think one of the things that they used to do, it was a couple years back that people actually figured out that they thought it was, an A, B, C, D, C, B, A, D, kind of like a back and forth write down based on numbers. So it was almost a truly random selection. Sorry if I'm, jumping in here, but so I think it was a truly random. My understanding for Michigan State is it's probably going to be more of somehow a power ranking, I think, division to try to equalize the divisions is what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to try to use something out there, whether it's ranking points or where you rank in the list, maybe whether or not you've won an event or haven't won an event, or where you were picked, and try to split it up that to even out the events. The thing I'm interested in is, are you going to end up having the gear division, the shooter division, that kind of stuff, where, are all the shooters all in one division? Does each division get one shooter or two shooters or three shooters? And how is that going to be split up? Because that's going to, once again, sorry to use the word again, about meta. Each division might have its own meta, and then when they come to meet in the end, how are those two going to combine and play out in both the semis and finals of the final field?
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what happens, and we still have some events that are going on before that algorithm's used. I hope we find out some more information, before then, and try to figure, because the kids are asking, right, too. They're like, what division are we going to be in? I don't know what to tell you at this point. We just have to wait. How do you think you can prepare for states coming up? We're 2 weeks away, right?
We're taking lessons learned from, Kettering 2, where we got to the semifinals, and Midland, where we won, and we did really, really well there. And a lot of that came from the drive team has at least our driver's been there this is third year. So he's very confident there. The practice field we have, I think, helps us a lot. But what I think we take away from this is really getting a good, solid understanding of who's on your alliance and the strategy you're going to use, and make sure you follow the strategy, because it depends on who you're against. So it's going to be understanding the teams, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and we can go through a lot of videos, just like you do for football or whatever, to understand that. We're also figuring out what our weak points are and trying to strengthen those. That's kind of the best we can do until we get there, because states, luckily, as everyone knows, most of the teams are pretty good there. So we are going to see a lot of 4 gears. We're going to see a lot of high scores. We're going to see probably most everybody hang. And so it is probably going to come down to a lot of the balls you make in either in Auton or afterwards, the differentiator there. So, however they break it up, I don't care. Glad to be there. We keep them good teams for the kids to get the experience and see what it's really like to play against some of the top teams in the world. And again, it's just like any sport, right? Figure out what you got to improve on that, understand who your competition is, and let her rip.
And Ben, from the Flying Toasters perspective, your team's perspective, you guys looking forward to states? It sounds like you've told us that you've had a lot of.
Yeah, I think we are. As I said, through Pioneer, we were just trying to really get our robot fixed up and dialed in. And then once we got to Howell, we took a couple matches just to get back to normal. And then from then on out, it was just constant improvement. We just got faster at our gears. We were able to climb every match. So I think we're pretty good going into states. We'll just spend the first day practicing and getting our robot completely tuned up and everything, and we'll be good to go.
So the next question I have for you guys, because I was thinking about this week, there are some rookie teams that have already qualified and they're going to states, right? They earn those awards that are going to do that. So, Andrew, what advice can you give a rookie team that might be listening to this and I don't want to say they're shaking in their boots, but they're wondering what's going to happen at states? Is their first experience with states? How do we prepare them to be able to deliver what they can best so that maybe they get picked in an alliance?
I'd have to say you got to hang. Number one, whatever you have to do to make sure that you can hang, call on an experienced team near you, see if there's someone that can come help you if you need it. But number one, you've got to be able to hang. Number two, a gear manipulator, it can be pretty simple. Rethink what it is you're going to do with that gear and be able to get it from the human player station and get it onto that peg. The rookie team the newer team that we worked with at Lansing was great. They could do 2 or 3 gears. Between us and 5205 could easily do 6 gears apiece, right? On a good match. So it was really great to have them on our alliance. So being able to really secure that, over 400 points, having someone that could do a few gears, 2 or 3 gears would be a great, to get picked up. So to me, those are the 2 things you could probably do to just ensure that you're, see if you can't get playing and being consistent as possible. I guess, making sure, like I think Clint said earlier, making sure your robot works. That's one of the things we're doing back at our shop right now, is making sure that those failures that we've had in previous competitions don't happen again in this event, and then we can stay consistent.
Clint, is there anything you can add to that? Metal Muscle, the Martians can pick up a gear off the ground. To me, I think that's one of the cool factors, is that if you can't get a gear from the station, you can pick it up or steal one, which we have in the past. I think that was kind of cool to do. Is there something else that you can add to this conversation as far as rookies are concerned?
Yeah, the one thing was actually the last word that I think Andrew said was consistency. I think that's the biggest thing that any rookie or any team could focus on, is to be consistent. Consistent at whatever you do. I think our team were a little bit different in terms of the gear on the ground situation. I know I talked about it earlier on throughout the season that gear ground intake can be very advantageous at the beginning. And we're starting to see more and more the further we go in this season that there are less people dropping gears on purpose or by mistake. So, being able to pick them off the ground is nice, but it's not necessary for every alliance. There are some gear runners out there. I'll go back to Kettering 2. Kettering 2, the number 8 alliance, a lot of people wonder why they won that event. Kettering 2, they picked up the number 1 gear runner at that event, which was 1243. They were the number 1 gear runner. They had a passive system, and they had no ground intake, but they were the number 1 gear runner at that event. That number 8 alliance then picked up the number 4 gear runner of that event, which was 2612, the Corsairs. They also did not have a ground intake. They did have an active intake to deploy it onto the peg, but both of those teams did not have ground intakes, and they walked themselves with hard work and they walked themselves through the quarterfinals, beating the number 1 alliance, beating our alliance in the semis, and taking home the blue banner in the end. Because they raced to 3 rotors faster than any alliance there, and then they played defense. So, like I said, having consistency, whatever it is, if you're good at running gears from the station and you just need to go there to get them every time, just do it and make sure you do it consistently. And I think that'll play out. And the people you want to be with, they'll notice those abilities and they'll pick you up. So I don't think don't try to go out there and be, explosive, where one match you do 8 gears and the next match you do 2. It'd be much better to have it where you consistently run the same number of gears every time. And the last little bit of stats that we had from Kettering 2, hindsight after we looked at what happened at that event, is, like I said, 1243, number 1 gear runner at the event. Their minimum that they ever did in a match was 3 gears. Their maximum was 5. Their average was 4.2 gears a match, and their standard deviation was 0.6. So they were extremely consistent, and that's why that team won.
Yeah, I have nightmares about that event because we were in the first alliance. I remember.
Yep.
It was not fun.
Everyone underestimated them. Everyone underestimated that alliance, and they did an amazing job. They were down a climber. And the thing that we beat our head out against is in those matches for us in the semis, because of what we had, we could have done, do the math, we could have done 2 rotors, right? Which is fairly easy to do. All 3 of our alliance members could have stayed out our ropes for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. We all climbed. We beat them by 10 points. But we ignored the numbers. We ignored the math. And they were able to throw us off our game, play D, cause us to miss our 3rd rotor, and also miss climbs.
John and Don, is there anything that you guys can add to that for a rookie team that's coming in to go compete at states?
Yeah, I'll jump on that first, John. I think that the best thing is that was said earlier also is make sure your robot is in good shape and can stay these robots through 2 competitions now. And some people are played 3 competitions. Your robot's going to take a beating. You need to look over it carefully, look for worn items, and you need to make sure those are replaced and upgraded. So getting your robot back to good shape from where it started in your first event, is probably very key. Things have worn out. So we've got a laundry list of stuff for our robot once we can unbag at states that we're going to replace, just components. They're in good working order, but they were showing wear at the end of Midland. So we need to get them back.
Yeah, and this is John. I agree with that 100%, that you got to make sure your robot's in good shape, what to fix, and figure out the timing you need to fix it, and plan out what you're going to do and everything. Climbing is critical. If you're a rookie team and you don't have a lot of functionality and stuff, running a few gears is important. Playing good D is important. Understand what your strengths and weaknesses are and what you can add to the alliance so they can put up a good strategy. So when you're in there, so you're a good partner. When we were at Midland, I'll tell you what, that team that we helped at Cheesecake and everything, the RoboCats, they listened. They listened, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do to a T. And they were a young team. So, if you do what you're asked to in the alliance and you know your strengths and weaknesses, then that's really the key to helping out the alliance. Don't play for yourself, play for the alliance.
Hey, Ben, how about you guys? What can you guys offer a rookie team that's going to be competing here in 2 weeks at states?
So the best advice I can offer is also going in line with that, with just making sure that your robot works before every match. We had one of our things was that we have a checklist that we always check for every single match. We have somebody who's dedicated. Their job is to make sure that nobody gets away without making sure that checklist is complete before the match starts. That includes running every single motor and everything. We have a floor gear intake. One of our matches past weekend, we were doing our regular system check, and we ran the gear intake system, and it went down and didn't come back up. And so we were able to fix the problem within a couple minutes, but without that, we would have gone into a match completely handicapped. So just make sure the robot is always working. Maybe make that checklist or something for your team, and just stay on top of your robot.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to add to you guys, and I'll ask you guys all this, is how important do you think data is in scouting? I know scouting leads to alliance selections, equal blue banners hanging up in your guys' workshops. So, Andrew, how precious is that data?
I'll tell you what, as a drive coach, I always sit there and wonder who the heck are we going to pick? Going into alliance selection, as a drive coach and my drive team and my pick crew, they tend to be a lot of the leaders on the team, and they always have their opinions on who to pick. And I tell them, I go, you guys, we can't have an opinion. We don't watch matches. We're busy working on the robot. We're doing strategy between matches. We're talking to teams. It's really difficult for us to make those decisions. So having that full team working together to win those matches, there was a lot of matches that we won because of data. Our second to last match in qualifications, we could not have won that match, and we ended up getting a high score at the event because we decided to go for 4 rotors because we knew that our alliance could do 4 rotors. Without the data, we probably wouldn't have done it. We also have to, when you're deciding on that last pick, that person out on the field has got to know what those teams can do. When they picked 65-48, to be honest with you, I had no idea that they could do what they could. They could get 2 to 3 rotors consistently, and they were consistently hanging. So I would have no idea that they were able to do that. And if it wasn't for a great scouting team back in the stands and taking not only anecdotal information about teams as they're going along and things that they're doing, things that are failing on their robot, all come to me as a coach, as well as a data sheet with all of the statistics of the entire event. As a coach, even on the field, both on the field and making your pick list, without that data, I feel teams are kind of lost sometimes.
And Clint, dare I ask this, because I know your team has one of the most comprehensive scouting teams on the face of the planet that I've seen. I remember at Kettering Week 1, you guys weren't even competing at that event, and you guys had a full force, all hands scouting team there. So I know you know data. You already use Meta, so I know you're going to use data. How precious is data?
Well, I mean, data is extremely important. I mean, we were beta testing our scouting system at Kettering Week 1. It's fortunate for us that Kettering's basically in our backyard relative to where we build. So we actually have a team of students who are really pumped about scouting, and they basically work the whole season on our Excel database, how to input data faster, how to calculate averages, all that kind of stuff. We took a different approach this year with our scouting. We don't try to count every fuel shot up in the air because we thought that would be too difficult. We look at the approach for scouting more in terms of cycles. We feel that this game's a cycle game. Depends on how many cycles you make. But other factors come into play is at what point does a team stop cycling because they know they don't need to continue to cycle, right? And that's a very hard thing to watch for and look for, and it's very hard to do just by looking at the 40,000 foot view of data. Like I said, we collect a lot of data, but the hardest thing for any team to do is to be able to watch matches and find that diamond in the rough that plays smart in the match, who you can count on, who just pauses for a moment, lets another robot pass by, and then pulls in, because that synergy of alliances makes a big difference. A thing that I usually like to say, it's real easy to pick the number one person at the event. It's really difficult to pick the 24th team at an event. And data helps us do that, but also watching lots of matches. Watching matches, whether they're in-state, out-of-state, seeing how things play out, seeing how people do stuff, it helps you. And like I said, knowing everyone's capabilities and resources when they're out on the field, and making sure that they'll align to what your strategy is to win the event.
You brought up some really key factors there, Clint, and I'll give you an example. When myself and Andrew's team went to Lansing and we competed against each other, 494 didn't have the best event in qualifications. I think we were 18th coming into alliance selection, and the number 2 picked us, which we were floored. We didn't even think that was going to happen. But they looked at the data and they knew that we could cycle real fast, and we could cycle those gears as fast as we could get them off the ground or from the chute or whatever it was. And we ended up winning that event. So, you're right. It's all based upon how good your scouting team is.
In my personal opinion, this year's ranking system for events is horrible. It does not rank the best teams at the event. So if there's teams out there that are looking at where you rank, if you're ranked number 1 or number 2 or number 15 or number 40, and there's a lot of people who'll get upset for someone picking someone at 38th position. And they're like, why did they get picked? We were ranked number 12th. How did they overlook us? Scouting and data is what makes those decisions, because with this year's game, there is nothing you can do about your alliance partners in terms of climbing, that will lose you matches, and it's out of your control. You can't make up 50 points. And like I said, I'll go through once again. I know Kettering 2 inside and out because we left the eliminations earlier than what we wanted, so we were evaluating everything. 494 at that event, ranked number 1 at that event. If you were to go to an event and have a perfect, everyone hits your touchpad, everyone hits your climbs, you should come out with 1,800 touchpad points at the end of the event. 494 had 1,350 touch point pads, which means that 10 of their alliance partners missed their climb, right? And for our alliance, for us, we came out of that event with 950 points, which means 17 of our partners at Kettering 2 did not climb, right? And that's a lot of points left on the field, and that's some of the stuff that depends on where people rank. So once again, like I said, knowing what your partners are going to do and stuff like that, and seeing what people physically actually do on the field is more important than where they're ranked at the event, because the ranking system this year just doesn't do it.
So that leads me to John and Don. How do you guys scout for your team? Do you guys have a dedicated group of kids that are out there scouting in the stands?
Yeah, absolutely. We picked up our abilities to scout over the last couple of years dramatically from where this team was 3 or 4 years ago, because we see data as the key as everybody else does, right? And exactly what Clinton said, for being able to get a strong alliance where there's a synergy between all the teams, where you're not just picking somebody because of their number or because of where they're ranked. You're picking because of the data says, this is what we need on this team, on this alliance to have a winner. Don, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, and it really stepped up again, another couple notches this year with the group of students we have. So it worked out well. They were able to scout very well at Midland, and were able to give us a great list of robots that could climb. I mean, we knew we were going to have the very last pick, so we wanted to have a robot that could at least climb, and they chose one. Just unfortunately, when we went to the pit, their climber had broken their last match, and they sheared the shaft, and there was no parts available to fix theirs. So as luck would have it, we had our spare with us, and it worked out so well that it fit into the robot just about perfectly. I don't think we could have picked a better robot. So,
Ben, how about you guys? For the Flying Toasters, do you guys have a dedicated scouting team?
Yeah, we do. So we have our entire scouting team works on a local area network system of laptops, and we're currently working on building a big scouting mainframe thing with 12 batteries on an inverter and everything. It's going to be quite an operation. As of right now, we still have a full scouting team, one person per robot on the field, and then we have a data compiler, and then somebody who runs down the sheets to our drive team before we start every match. So they give us a match prediction score, which is usually really accurate, and they give us a strategy on how best to win, and the runner then presents the strategy to the drive team, make sure they understand it. Our drive team would then talk to other drive teams, and that's how we go about our strategy. But it's very important on our team.
And as far as 494 and 70, I put an electronic scouting system into that team this year, and we follow like you guys, Ben. We have one scout per bot that watches, and they use a bunch of tablets that are hooked through a Bluetooth server, and then we can real time link that stuff back to a Chromebook, so we can present all that data back to the drive team through the sheets that we fill out for production. So that was kind of fun to work on. That was my mentoring this year for those teams, and it's going to be a heck of a time trying to scout at states. Thank God I'm thinking, Gail, that it is a 40 team division that we can scout, because I think if it was a whole entire thing, I don't know how you would scout everyone at the same time. That would be impossible. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, guys. I thank you for sharing and all the information that you're passing out there. I want everyone to be successful at states. Of course, I want my team to win states, as Clinton wants his team to win states, and then John and Don want their team to win states, and Ben wants to win his team to win states. So as you guys sign off, just tell everyone who you are, your team, how we can follow you on social media real quick, and then any last thoughts that you guys have. So I'll let you go first, Andrew.
All right, guys. This is Andrew Spees calling in from Trucktown Thunder Robotics at Brandon and Holly High School. You can find us on trucktownthunder.com. All of our social media channels are there. We look forward to seeing everyone at States. Bring your family out. I know I'm bringing all my family out, at least on Saturday. Get everybody out there. It's a free show, and it's going to be a great event for everyone. I look forward to seeing everybody in the finals.
I'm Clinton from Team 2337. You can find us at www.team2337.com. We're on Twitter, Team2337. You search for us on Facebook, you'll find us there. Looking forward to MSC. However, we got one more event this weekend at Shepherd. We got to focus on that first before we get too distracted with MSC. Hopefully we'll be putting up some more balls into the air into that boiler this weekend. So if anyone wants to see someone actually shoot, hopefully you can watch the First in Michigan stream this weekend up at Shepherd to see what's happening. Like I said, look forward to States. I think it's going to be a blast per usual, and it'll be interesting to see how the 4 divisions end up working out at States.
It is going to be interesting. John and Don, you guys are up next. John, I'll let you go first.
This is John Wolford, 1506 Metal Muscle out of Kettering University. We can be found on Twitter, Facebook, and on our website. So,
Don, do you have anything?
Don, go ahead.
Yeah. Don Ridge, also a mentor for 1506 out of Kettering University. I know our Twitter handle is Mutz1506. So that's about all the social media I do, guys. Thanks.
Ben, you're taking us home.
My name is Ben Wolak. I'm from Team 3641, the Flying Toasters out of South Lyon. We can be most easily reached at theflyingtoasters.org, and that has our Twitter and our monthly newsletter and all kinds of pictures and everything that we take at events. We're also a pretty active team on Chief Delphi, and just while we were sitting here, actually, I put something on Chief Delphi linking to our YouTube account where we have our robot release video from this year, too. YouTube website, Chief Delphi. That's where you can find us.
Right. Thanks, guys, again for all your time. Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
This is John. Real quick, I gotta put a little ad in for the First Robotics Center. With the 8 teams in there, okay, this year, every one of those 8 teams made the elimination rounds on their first event. We have 2 district winners there. And last week, Art Atherton, which team we started 3 years ago, made the finals at Lake Superior. So the strength and the practice and stuff coming out of that, out of the university and the First Robotics Center is getting better and better and better every year. We're proud to be part of that.
And that's great that you guys can support those teams, and who knows how many more will come out of that, right? So
you got that right.
For those of you that have events coming up, good luck. Put the balls in the air, put the gears on the hook, and climb as best as you can, and we'll talk to you guys in a couple weeks at States.
See you at States.
Let's get into this week's RoboZone Mentor of the Week. This mentor has made a great impact on his or her team. If you'd like to nominate a mentor, please tweet us at RoboZone TV.
This week's Mentor of the Week is Andrew Spees. You just heard his voice. He's from Trucktown Thunder. He had a lot of fans that were emailing me like crazy. So congratulations, Andrew, on becoming Mentor of the Week.
Time now for the RoboZone Team of the Week. This team was nominated by you, the listening audience. If you'd like to nominate a team, please tweet us at RoboZone TV.
This week's Team of the Week is Team 3534, the House of Cards out of Davison, Michigan. They have a lot of fans, a lot of parents, and a lot of people that follow them. Congratulations, House of Cards, Team 3534, for being Team of the Week.
Let's check out our RoboZone Drive Team of the Week. This group of individuals that navigates and dominates the field of play has the respect of their peers. If you want to nominate a Drive team, please tweet us at RoboZone TV.
This week's Drive Team of the Week is Team 2767 Strike Force out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. A lot of fans that you have out there, a lot of fans that are supporting you, and a lot of fans that have contacted me.
listening to the RoboZone Podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at RoboZoneTV.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.